The plasma center technician suddenly went pale when she looked at my blood test. "Mr. Bridgewater, don't move," she said quietly. "I need to call someone right now." That was the moment my life worth. Almost nothing, just hours earlier, suddenly became worth $30 million. My name is Gerald Bridgewater, but people just call me Jerry. I'm 53 years old, and only 6 hours before that technician's hand started shaking. I was sitting in my car, counting spare change to see if I could afford a cheap $1 burger. 3 quarters, 4 dimes, a bunch of pennies, 2.17. That was everything I had to my name. Well, besides the blood I came to sell for $60. Because the electric company doesn't care about excuses. They want money and I didn't have any. If you want to know what hitting rock bottom feels like, picture this: a man who once managed 40 employees, now walking into a plasma center in his last clean shirt, sitting between college kids and people, fighting addictions, all of us trading our blood for a little cash. The form asked for an emergency contact. I left it blank. My ex-wife wouldn't answer. My daughter didn't want me at her wedding. My son blocked my number months ago. Even my brother stopped calling after I refused his help for the 5th time. The security guard looked at me and asked, "First time?" He didn't need my answer. First-timers always look the same: tired, embarrassed, and hungry. But here's something I learned that day. Sometimes, when you fall all the way down, you land on something valuable. Sometimes the thing you think is worthless turns out to be exactly what the world needs. Because when the technician ran for her supervisor, when specialists rushed in, when men in suits arrived with briefcases full of papers, I realized something. Your value isn't always about your job, your skills, or your past. Sometimes it's hidden inside you, and you don't even know it. This is the story of how I went from being fired at 53 to becoming the man whose blood helped save more than 200,000 lives. But to understand that moment, you need to know how I ended up in that chair in the first place. Broke, alone, and with nothing left to lose. And you need to know about Roderick Quinlan, the 38-year-old executive who ruined my career with a smile. You need to know about the email he sent me. The same email I now keep in a frame on my office wall. It reminds me that sometimes the people who try to hurt you end up giving you the biggest push forward. And you also need to know what happened. 3 hours after that, technician made her urgent phone call. A CDC doctor sat across from me, looked me straight in the eye, and said 8 words I'll never forget. "Your blood could save millions of lives, Jerry." But like I said, I'm getting ahead of the story. Let's go back to where everything truly began, a Tuesday. Morning in March, that was the last day. I walked into Midwest Distribution Solutions, completely unaware that losing my job would turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. I had given that company 28 years of my life. I started when I was 25, right after leaving the Army, ready to build something steady. My dad, Frank Bridgewater, worked on the railroad for 35 years. He always told me that a man's value comes from dedication. You show up early, you stay late, and you make yourself needed, he'd tell me during dinner. That's how you build your life, Jerry. I lived by those words. I began as a floor supervisor making $12 an hour. I learned every truck route, every schedule, every problem spot. I knew which drivers had back pain, which roads flooded in spring, and which shipments needed extra attention. By 35, I was managing the whole second shift. By 40, I was running operations for the entire warehouse. 40 employees, millions of dollars in inventory, everything moving through my hands. Back then, my wife Marlene was proud of me. We bought a simple 3-bedroom house in Oakwood. Heights, nothing fancy, but ours. Bethany was in middle school, great at math, dreaming of becoming an engineer. Trevor was in elementary school, crazy about baseball, and I never missed one of his games. Saturday mornings were perfect. I made pancakes. Marlene read the newspaper, and we planned our week. Life was simple, peaceful, good. Things changed 5 years ago when a bigger company bought Midwest. Suddenly, we had new managers, people with shiny degrees who talked big but had never lifted a single box. One of them was Roderick Quinlan. He was 33, wearing suits more expensive than my monthly salary, always talking about efficiency and synergy and human capital. "Jerry, you're old school," he told me during his first week, like he was diagnosing an illness. "We need to modernize your thinking." I tried. I attended their seminars, learned their glitchy software that made work harder, and followed their new rules. But I also kept doing what actually mattered, supporting my workers, fixing problems with common sense, and making sure shipments left on time. Then the divorce pushed everything downhill. Marlene had been seeing someone else, a real estate guy named Carlton, the type who drove a Tesla and talked nonstop about cryptocurrency. She told me she had been unhappy for years. She said I was boring, that all I ever talked about was work, that I had forgotten how to dream. She gave me the divorce papers on a Thursday. By Friday, she had emptied our joint savings account, all $23,000, money we saved for Bethany's wedding and Trevor's college. I need a fresh start, she said softly, like she was returning something to a store. You can keep the house. Which really meant I got stuck with a house I couldn't afford on my own. Bethany immediately sided with her mother. Dad, you never even noticed how unhappy Mom was. You were always at that warehouse. Trevor didn't yell at me like Bethany did. He just got quiet. No calls, no visits. Within 6 months, it felt like my whole family had disappeared from my life. So I buried myself even deeper in work. Because what else did I have left? By then, Quinlan had been promoted to regional director, and it felt like he made it his personal mission to make my job miserable. Every week he rolled out some new rule, some new system, or some new metric that didn't help anyone. He brought in his friends from business school for high-paying jobs we didn't need, and refused to replace the warehouse workers who quit because of the chaos. We need to work smarter, not harder, Jerry, he'd say in every meeting right before forcing a policy that made everything harder. That Tuesday started completely normal. Coffee at 5 a.m., checked emails, reviewed shipment plans. Then I got a call from his assistant. Mr. Quinlan needs to see you in conference room B. Everyone knew what that meant. Conference room B was where careers ended. No windows far from the main floor, and soundproof enough that nobody heard the crying. When I walked past my team, they avoided my eyes. They knew. Quinlan didn't even bother standing when I came in. Jerry, we're restructuring. Your position is being eliminated immediately. 28 years, Roderick, I said quietly. I built this place. We appreciate that, but we're moving in a new direction. Younger leadership. Fresh ideas. I'm sure you understand. I wanted to tell him I had trained half the managers in the company, that I saved them millions, that I knew more about that warehouse than any spreadsheet ever would. But arguing wouldn't change anything, so I just nodded. No severance, he added, sliding papers toward me. Your performance issues are listed here. You can fight it, but it'll take months. And honestly, Jerry, I don't think you have months. Security walked me out. 28 years reduced to a cardboard box. My coffee mug, an old picture of my kids, and a plastic Employee of the Year award from 2019. That night I sat alone in my dark house, staring at an eviction notice on the table and seeing only $17 left in my bank account. That's when Quinlan's email arrived. The next morning, I drove to the Plasma Life Center, the place wedged between a payday loan shop and a liquor store with metal bars on the windows. I used to drive past it on my way to work and think, those poor people. Now I was one of them, parking my old Honda with the check engine light glowing like a warning. After that email, I applied for jobs with confidence. 28 years of operations experience. How hard could it be? The first rejection came the same day. We chose someone whose skills better match our needs. Translation, someone younger. The second rejection said I was overqualified. The third didn't bother pretending to be polite. This job requires experience with modern logistics systems. 3 months. 73 job applications. 12 interviews. 0 offers. My brother Dennis called every week from Phoenix. Jerry, come stay with us. Rhonda and I have the guest house ready. Take your time, figure things out. I'm fine, Dennis. Something will come through. You're not fine. I can hear it. Dad's been gone 10 years, Jerry. You don't have to live by his rules anymore. Accepting help isn't weakness. But I couldn't. Our father raised us with hard rules. A man handles his own problems. A man provides. A man doesn't burden others. Even though my family had left and everything was falling apart, those lessons were burned into me. Bills started falling behind. Cable got shut off first, then the internet. The electricity company sent a final notice printed in bright red. Service will be disconnected in 72 hours. The landlord wasn't any kinder. Jerry, I like you. But business is business. Pay the 3 months' rent by Friday or I file eviction papers. I started selling anything I owned. My dad's old Seiko watch, his retirement gift after 35 years, got me $200 at the pawn shop. Duke, the shop owner, looked at me and said, "You sure? This has meaning." "Everything has meaning until you're hungry," I told him. Then I sold my truck, my Ford F-150. The dealer offered $8,000 even though it was worth almost twice that. But desperation has no power to negotiate. My wedding ring brought in another $300. Marlene didn't want it back. "Keep it, Jerry," she said. "Maybe it'll remind you that we were happy once." The money vanished into back rent, partial utility bills, and groceries. By Wednesday morning, I had $143 left. The plasma center paid $60 for a first donation, enough for gas to get to more job interviews where they'd see my gray hair and quietly decide I didn't fit their culture. The waiting room at Plasma Life looked exactly how you'd expect. Cracked plastic chairs, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a TV in the corner showing old Judge Judy episodes. A young woman tried to hide track marks under heavy makeup as she filled out forms with trembling hands. A college kid in a hoodie scrolled through his phone, probably calculating whether $60 would cover beers. An older man in work boots slept in the corner between construction gigs. The receptionist, Wanda, had kind eyes behind thick glasses. She was maybe 60 and carried a steady, practiced warmth, someone who had seen every kind of brokenness walk through that door. "Is it obvious?" I asked, tugging at my collar. I was wearing a dress shirt, checking the door like I was afraid someone I knew might walk in. Wanda smiled. "Everyone here has their own problems. No one's judging." The medical screening was quick but clinical. Height 6'1", weight 190, down from 210 6 months ago. Medications, none, couldn't afford them. Medical history, appendectomy at 12, broken arm at 30 from a warehouse accident, and a bad fever on a trip to Morocco 15 years earlier. Morocco? The intake nurse, a young woman named Priya, asked, looking up from her computer. "What happened there?" "Anniversary trip with my ex," I said. "Got sick from something I ate. Local hospital treated me and I recovered in a few days." She typed that in and sent me to the donation floor. Rows of vinyl recliners filled the large room, each with an IV pole and a machine that separated plasma from the blood. The man in the next chair, Hector, noticed my nervousness. "First time's weird," he said in a low voice with a slight accent. "But you get used to it. I come twice a week. Keeps my kids fed." The needle slid in without drama, and I watched my blood move through clear tubes into the centrifuge. This was rock bottom. Jerry Bridgewater, former operations manager, selling plasma for groceries. Then Priya came back holding a tablet to run routine quality checks. She scanned my bag, glanced at the screen, and froze. Her eyes widened and she stared between the tablet and me like she'd seen something impossible. "Mr. Bridgewater, what medications did you say you were taking?" she asked. "None. I told you I can't afford any," I replied. "Any recent vaccines, experimental treatments, clinical trials?" she asked. "No, nothing like that." She stepped back, alarm on her face, and started toward the supervisor's office. I was left in the chair with the machine still, running, and other donors turning to look at me, like I had the plague. Through the glass of the supervisor's office, I watched Priya point frantically at screens while Mrs. Chen, the supervisor, called person after person. The whispers began. Hector leaned toward me, careful with his IV. "Brother, what did you do? Rob a bank? They only get this excited for cops or corporate." Minutes went by, 20, then 30. My donation finished, but nobody came to disconnect me. Finally, Mrs. Chen walked in with a calm, practiced face. "Mr. Bridgewater, we need to run more tests," she said. "There's nothing wrong with you, actually. It may be the opposite, but please stay calm while we check." "Check what?" "You're scaring me," I said. "I've called our medical director, Dr. Solomon Reeves. He's coming now. For now, we'll move you to a private room and take more samples." They unhooked me and led me to a small office that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. A nurse I hadn't seen drew 6 more vials of blood and labeled them with numbers instead of my name before disappearing. Mrs. Chen tried to chat about the weather while we waited, but I kept watching the clock. Dr. Solomon Reeves arrived 43 minutes later. He didn't look like a typical clinician. No white coat, An expensive charcoal suit and shoes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He moved fast like he'd left something urgent to get there. "Mr. Bridgewater," he said, "I need to ask some very specific questions. Think carefully about your answers. That illness in Morocco 15 years ago, tell me everything. It was our 20th anniversary. Marlene wanted to visit Marrakesh, so we went. One night we ate lamb kebabs from a street vendor near the Medina. They tasted great, but a few hours later I got horribly sick. My fever shot up, maybe 104, maybe even 105. I started hallucinating. Marlene rushed me to a small local hospital." "What hospital?" Dr. Reeves asked. "I don't remember the name," I said. "It was tiny. Hardly anyone spoke English. One doctor knew a little French. And luckily, Marlene remembered enough from college to talk to him. They gave me fluids through an IV and some kind of shot. Could have been antibiotics. Could have been something else. I was too out of it to ask." He pulled out his phone and showed me a map of Marrakesh. I pointed at the general area where I thought the hospital was. He wrote notes quickly, then leaned in closer. "Mr. Bridgewater, what I'm about to tell you might sound impossible, but I need you to stay with me," he said. "Your blood has antibodies for a virus called RVK7. I frowned. "What is that?" "It's related to Marburg and Ebola," he said. "But it's even more dangerous. In lab tests, RVK7 kills 90% of infected primates. Intelligence agencies have been tracking it for decades because they're worried someone might use it as a bioweapon." My mouth went dry. "Are you telling me I had Ebola?" "No," he said. "You had something worse. And not only did you survive, you created perfect antibodies. I mean perfect. Your immune system did something our researchers have failed to do for 30 years. But I was only sick for 3 days," I said. "That's the strange part," he replied. "RVK7 kills primates in 5 days. Humans probably faster, but you fought it off like it was nothing. And those antibodies in your blood, they're not just protective, they're a cure." The room suddenly felt too small. "A cure for what? Who has this virus?" "At the moment, no confirmed cases in the U.S. But there are 3 outbreaks in Central Africa, Congo, Chad, and Cameroon. Around 2,000 infected, and maybe 200 will survive without treatment. With antibodies made from your blood, we could save over 90%. Dr. Reeves opened a briefcase and slid papers toward me. "Here's what's next," he said. "The CDC will take samples immediately. The World Health Organization will get involved. Pharmaceutical companies will offer contracts. You'll need attorneys to protect your rights." "My rights?" I asked. "I came here for $60. He gave a small smile. "Mr. Bridgewater, the CDC alone will pay. Around $8 million for research. Access to your plasma. Drug companies may offer $20 million or more for long-term development. If several companies want it, you could be looking at $30 million. I let out a shaky laugh. "This morning I had $17. "Tonight," he said, "your blood could save thousands. And if RVK7 spreads in the future, it could save millions. Morocco has reported unexplained fever deaths for years. Now we know the cause, and you, Mr. Bridgewater, are the key." "Why me?" I whispered. "Why did I survive?" "We'll study your genes," he said. "Some people are born with rare resistance. There are women in Kenya who can't get HIV despite years of exposure. History is full of people who survived diseases others couldn't. You're one of those rare cases." A knock at the door. Mrs. Chen stepped in with a phone. "Dr. Reeves, it's the CDC director." While he took the call, I stared out the window. People were still donating plasma for grocery money, for rent, for diapers, completely unaware that one of them had just become the most medically valuable person in the country. Dr. Reeves returned. "A federal response team is coming," he said. "Please stay in this room. Until proper safety protocols are set up, we need to protect you and your blood." "Protect me," I repeated. "You're now a national health priority," he said. "Your safety is government business." Minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled up. A CDC team entered the plasma center like they were handling a hazardous scene. Dr. Patricia Henley, the lead specialist, introduced herself with calm confidence. "Mr. Bridgewater," she said, "we've confirmed everything. Your antibodies are stable, strong, and easy to reproduce. With them, we can stop this outbreak." A lawyer, Harrison Finch, appeared with a tablet full of contracts. I had no idea who sent him, but he seemed to know exactly what to do. Jerry, he said, scrolling through numbers. The CDC's opening offer is $12 million for exclusive research rights. I recommend countering at 18. Counter? Is that allowed? I asked. You're the only human on Earth with these antibodies, he said. Yes, we counter. Then my phone buzzed. Bethany, then Trevor, then Marlene, then numbers I'd never seen. Somehow news had already leaked. Don't answer yet, Finch whispered. Let's sign the contract first. The negotiations lasted 4 long hours. By the end of it, the CDC agreed to pay $16 million for research rights, with $8 million wired to me up front. Regenerant Pharmaceuticals, who somehow already knew what was happening, offered $22 million for 5-year development rights. Another company, Global Biosolutions, wanted to handle worldwide distribution for $15 million. All this money, tied to the blood I had planned to sell for $60. By 8 p.m., I had signed my name 37 times and had confirmation that $8 million would be in my bank account the next morning. Dr. Henley was already coordinating with medical teams in Africa, preparing for shipments of antibody, treatments that would be made from my blood within days. We'll need 2 donations a week this month, she explained. After we fully synthesize your antibodies, we'll only need small samples every few months. That's it. Donating blood and saving lives. The money is just society saying thank you. When Bethany called for the 5th time, I finally picked up. Dad, I saw the news. Someone in Cincinnati has the cure for that African virus. They won't say who. Mom said you were at a plasma center today. Is it you? It's me, honey. Oh my God, Dad, that's amazing. We haven't talked in so long, but Dad, you're going to save all those people. Next came Trevor's call. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I blocked your number. Sorry I just took Mom's side. I'm sorry for everything. You don't owe me an apology, I said. Yes, I do. You needed family and we weren't there. But you're a hero now. My dad is a hero. The word hero didn't fit. Heroes make choices. I'd just been broken lucky. Then my phone rang again. A number I recognized, one I hadn't seen in months. Roderick Quinlan. Jerry, he said smoothly. I just heard the unbelievable news. Congratulations, you know. I always saw potential in you. That's why I pushed you so hard. Is that right, Roderick? Of course. Listen, Midwest would love to bring you back as a consultant, maybe help us with medical logistics. The board is extremely interested, and we can clear up the misunderstanding that led to your termination. HR made mistakes. We're prepared to offer 2 years of retroactive severance. I remembered the email he sent, the one saying, I'd never work in the industry again. That my age was a problem, that my skills were outdated. Roderick, I said, yesterday I meant nothing to you. Today, because my blood can save millions, you suddenly remember my value. But you never understood what value really was. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was showing up every day for 28 years. It was knowing my team's names and their kids' names. It was solving problems before you even knew they existed. Jerry, wait, let's not rush this. We can give you a generous package. I'm worth $30 million today, I said. Not because of anything you taught me. Because 15 years ago, my body survived something it shouldn't have. You were right about one thing, though. I'll never work in your industry again. I found the place I belong now, saving lives. I hung up. That felt better than the $8 million I was about to receive. Outside, through the window, I saw news vans filling the parking lot. Someone had leaked the story. By morning, everyone would know about the 53-year-old man whose blood held a cure. Dr. Henley walked in with her tablet and showed me a live video from a field hospital in Chad. Doctors were preparing to give the first dose of synthesized antibodies to a young mother whose fever had reached critical levels. Her name is Amara, Dr. Henley said. She's 23, 2 children. She's the first patient who'll receive your treatment. In 6 hours, she'll either be gone, or she'll be the proof that your blood can save the world. I watched that blurry video. Just 12 hours earlier, I had walked into this place with nothing. Now I was waiting to see if my blood could perform a miracle. Amara looked about the same age my daughter had been, scared but refusing to give up. Her kids needed her to live. My blood was already on its way, hope in a vial, traveling across the ocean to a woman who would never know my name. And somehow that meant more than all the money, more than Quinlan groveling, more than proving my worth. For the first time in years, I wasn't just valuable, I was needed. 6 months later, I stood at the grand opening of the Bridgewater Medical Research Center, watching Amara cut the ribbon. Yes, that Amara. She flew in with her children because she wanted to meet the man whose antibodies saved her life, and thousands more. "You gave me back to my children," she said through a translator, tears in her eyes. "How do you thank someone for that?" "You just did," I said, thinking of my own kids standing behind me, both of them there, both proud of me again. The center now took up the entire strip mall, where the old plasma donation place used to be. We bought out the payday loan shop and liquor store too, turning the whole block into something that helped the community. The original Plasma Life building still operated, but now it was free for anyone who needed it. Every donation was 100 instead of 60, and we gave free health checkups every visit. Hector, the man I met during my very first donation, was now the head of our community outreach team. He'd been donating plasma to feed his kids. Now he had a stable job, benefits, and real purpose. Hector smiled when I offered him the job. "You didn't forget about us," he said. "Most people get rich and forget where they came from." "I was one of you, Hector," I told him. "I still am. I just got lucky." Wanda from the front desk had become more than just someone who worked for me. We started having coffee after my plasma donations, talking about life, loss, and how to start over again. She had lost her husband 2 years before I walked into that center, so she understood what it felt like to rebuild your life from zero. Now we had dinner every Thursday, breakfast every Sunday, and she had moved into the house I nearly lost to foreclosure. Marlene used to call the house boring. Wanda called it home. The money fixed the basic problems, debts gone, house saved, a new truck sitting in the driveway. But the real reward wasn't the cash. It was the new beginnings. Bethany asked me to walk her down the aisle after all. "I want my hero dad there," she told me. Even though I didn't feel like a hero, I said yes. Trevor changed his major to biochemistry because of my story. "Maybe I have your antibodies, Dad," he joked. "Maybe I can help people too." He spent his weekends volunteering at the plasma center. The same kid who blocked my number now called me every day. My brother Dennis flew in from Phoenix for the grand opening. "Dad would be proud," he said as he looked at the crowd. "You handled everything just like he taught us." "He taught us to handle problems," I replied. "But sometimes handling them means admitting you can't do it alone." The numbers were unbelievable. In just 6 months, the RVK7 treatment made from my antibodies saved more than 18,000 lives across 4 continents. The virus was stopped before becoming another pandemic. Dr. Henley said it was one of the fastest and most successful emergency treatments the CDC had ever seen. Time magazine wanted me on the cover. I turned it down. I wasn't doing this for fame. Roderick Quinlan got fired 3 months after my discovery. Turns out companies don't like keeping the guy who fired the man who ended up saving thousands of lives. His LinkedIn now said, "Looking for new opportunities." I didn't feel bad. I didn't brag either. His cruelty pushed me into that plasma center. In a strange way, I owed him. At the ceremony, a young reporter asked, "Mr. Bridgewater, what would you say to someone who's at rock bottom right now? Someone who feels worthless?" I thought about that morning when I counted 117 and change in my car, walking into the plasma center with almost nothing. I would tell them that your value isn't always something you can see. Sometimes it's inside you, literally. Sometimes you don't even know the strength you're carrying just by surviving. I was 53, fired, broke, divorced, and alone. But my worst day led to my best purpose. Rock bottom isn't always the end. Sometimes it's the place where you discover who you really are. Dr. Reeves stepped up to announce our newest plan. Free RVK7 antibody testing for anyone who had traveled to affected areas in the past 20 years. "There may be more people like Jerry out there," he said. "People carrying something life-saving without knowing it." That word again, value. I used to think it meant a salary, a title, a job. Now I knew better. Value was Amara hugging her children again. Value was the old man in Nigeria who survived RVK7 and mailed me a hand-carved wooden angel with a note that simply said, "Thank you." Value was my son looking at me with pride instead of anger. The Plasma Center's new motto was carved into the glass doors. "Your worth isn't always visible, but it is always there." Everyone who walked, and whether they needed $60 for groceries or came in for testing, would see those words. Some would walk out with money for food. Others might walk out knowing they carried the cure for something bigger. Watching Amara's children playing with my grandchildren in the new community room, I understood something important. Every rejection, every failure, every desperate decision had led me to that donation chair at the perfect time. If Quinlan hadn't fired me, if Marlene hadn't left, if my kids hadn't pulled away, I never would have sold my plasma, and those antibodies would have stayed hidden while thousands died. My phone buzzed. A message from Bethany. Dad, look at the news. The headline read, Bridgewater antibodies save 20,000th patient. On one side was an old picture of me, tired, forgotten. On the other side was a photo from that day, surrounded by people alive because of the blood in my veins. Wanda squeezed my hand. You did good, Jerry. I just donated when I needed to, I said. Turns out that was enough. The ceremony ended with Amara's 5-year-old daughter giving me a drawing. It was a stick figure with a red cape. That's you, she said shyly. Superman? I wasn't Superman. I was just Jerry Bridgewater, 53 years old. Fired warehouse manager, divorced dad, a man who sold his plasma to buy groceries. But sometimes the world doesn't need a superhero. Sometimes it needs an ordinary person who unknowingly carries something extraordinary. If this story gave you hope, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that rock bottom is not the end. Tell us in the comments about a time your worst moment led to something unexpectedly good. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about ordinary people discovering their hidden value. You might be carrying something amazing inside you right now, something that could change the world when the time is right.